So we'll move into the third session for today, and I'd like to introduce Nahal Ipakchi, Senior Climate Lead at Blue Point Planning, to kick us off into the third session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Hello. I'm Nahal Ipakchi, Senior Climate Lead with Blue Point Planning, and I'm a climate resilience and equity strategist who's spent nearly 20 years helping agencies, tribes, communities, and academic partners co-design policies and programs that make equity a foundation of climate action. Over the years, I've worked alongside Bay Area EJ leaders and tribal climate leaders from the Pacific Northwest, helping launch initiatives like the Resilient Communities Initiatives, EJ Leadership Academies, with my friends Kirsten Andrews-Schwind and Phoenix Armenta over there. So nice to have them in the room with us. And DWR's community-based water infrastructure needs assessment, and the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority's Measure AA Community Grants Program. As BCDC's first EJ program manager, I also helped establish the agency's EJ advisory group to sustain ongoing partnership with community resilience experts. Through all of this, my North Star has been to foster trusting, durable partnerships among CBOs, tribes, agencies, and researchers, all working together toward healthy, thriving, and resilient communities. And that's really what today's session, Partnering for Change, is all about. The climate crisis is as much a societal challenge as it is a scientific one. Our data and models only become meaningful when connected with the lived experience and with community leadership. Historically, academic research hasn't always done that. Too often it's been about the community, but not with the community. But partnerships like Rise South City's collaboration with Stanford and UC Davis show what's possible when academic rigor and community knowledge meet to co-create more just and actionable solutions. When we talk about long-term partnerships, we're really talking about trust. Trust that's built and maintained over time, with shared goals and engagement that last beyond a grant cycle. The best collaborations are co-created. Communities and researchers define questions together, share capacity, and stay accountable to the outcomes that matter on the ground. As we move into today's discussion, I invite both our panelists and those of you all in the audience to reflect on this. What does it take to build relationships that last beyond the grant cycle? We'll use an engagement tool called Mentimeter to gather your thoughts in real time, and your input will guide where the conversation goes next. Our panelists will respond as we explore 4 core challenges in academic CBO collaboration. Those 4 challenges are trust and long-term relationships, resources and capacity, cultural awareness, and communication. By the end, I hope we'll leave with a few concrete ideas and maybe even some renewed inspiration for how we can build partnerships that not only bridge sectors, but also build lasting trust and shared ownership in the work ahead. So with that, I would like to invite our panelists to join me up on the stage for today's discussion. Come on up. And I'll go ahead and you can just jump up or... Thanks. I think I might sit down. Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, great. So thank you so much, panelists, for joining for this discussion. I'll go over, and I would like to read off your bios before we get started so everyone knows who's here with us. So we'll go ahead and start with, let me get the slides going. Oops, wrong way. That'd be cool if she was on our panel too. Let's start with, our panelists are representing these organizations and institutions. And we'll start with Brandon Raymonte. So Brandon is the Director of Community Engaged Learning and Environmental Sustainability at the Stanford Haas Center for Public Service. He earned a PhD in psychological and learning sciences from Stanford University, where his dissertation research focused on developing a learning experience that integrates engineering and fiction writing to engage youth in imagining pathways toward just and sustainable climate futures. Brandon oversees the Partnerships for Climate Justice in the Bay Area, or PCJ in the Bay initiative, which facilitates collaboration between Stanford and local community-based organizations in addressing the growing and disproportionate impacts of climate change on communities of color and low-income populations. PCJ in the Bay operates through long-term reciprocal partnerships with CBOs in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, including Acterra, Climate Resilient Communities, Nuestra Casa, Risal City, the list goes on. And let's see, so next we have Caro. So am I going the right way? Yes. Okay, and there's Caro. Okay, great. So Caro is here. You want to wave? So Caro Correa is the program manager at Brightline Defense, and she earned her BA in Environmental Studies and Hispanic Studies from Brown University, focusing on EJ and Latin America. At Brightline, an EJ nonprofit in San Francisco, Caro manages an air quality network in East San Francisco, providing free real-time air quality data and community air quality training to the underserved neighborhoods of the Tenderloin, south of Market, Chinatown, and Bayview Hunters Point. In collaboration with academics from UCSF and UC Berkeley, Caro designs and leads community air quality monitoring, organizing, and advocacy campaigns and indoor air quality studies. And to Caro's right, you want to wave, Micaela? Let's head on down. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the slides as I should. The multitasking, it might be too much for me. So we have Micaela Anan. And Micaela is a graduate student researcher for the Community Air Monitoring Project at UC Davis, led by Dr. Claire Cannon. Micaela earned a JD at King Hall School of Law in 2024 and is pursuing a combined graduate degree in geography. Alongside academic research and personal activism, Micaela's background in environmental justice includes organizing with law students for climate accountability and working with movements as an intern with the National Lawyers Guild, Earth Justice, and the Sustainable Economies Law Center. The UC Community Air Project is a multi-campus research initiative that unites researchers with community partners to address critical gaps in our understanding of air pollution using novel sensor technology. This project directly confronts challenges in monitoring localized hotspots of pollution in EJ communities through developing and deploying a new generation of air quality sensors. The Community Air Project specifically aims to empower disadvantaged communities through collaborative research and access to the novel air quality monitoring technology, and it's called TARTA, which we'll learn about soon, to better identify and quantify atmospheric metallic compounds. Their approach is a community-engaged one in which community partners serve as collaborators throughout the research process. Okay, and you'll learn more about Micaela's project soon. And last but not least, we have Mr. Julio Garcia. And Julio is the executive director of Risal City, an EJ organization rooted in South San Francisco that advances climate resilience, community health, and equity for frontline neighborhoods. Since founding RISE in 2021, Julio has led initiatives that bring together residents, local agencies, and regional partners to address the intersecting challenges of air pollution, housing, flooding, and lack of green space. He spearheaded the Air Quality and Tree Initiative, a multi-year effort to plant hundreds of new trees, expand the city's urban canopy, and install a network of community air monitors to track pollution, hotspots, and advocate for healthier living conditions. Julio also co-founded the Colma Creek Collective, a cross-sector partnership working to restore creek habitats, reduce flood risks, and create safe, accessible green corridors that connect and protect communities. With more than 23 years of leadership in the Bay Area's Latinx community, Julio continues to champion inclusive, community-driven solutions that strengthen resilience and ensure environmental justice for future generations. Great. So, yeah, welcome them all to the stage. Quite an amazing brain trust we have up here. So without further ado, let's get into the interactive discussion. As I said, we'll be using a tool, an interactive tool called Mentimeter to let the audience rank your topic areas for each of the challenges. Rankings will display live on our screen, and we will read off at least one of the top challenges. We might be able to get to two. So that the panelists will be answering questions specifically on those crowdsourced top challenges. So we would like you to please go ahead and scan the QR code or enter the code that you see on the screen. And if you can't get what's on the screen, there should be a printout of the QR code and information on how to access Mentimeter on a piece of paper on your table. So we'll give everyone about 1 minute to rank your topics for our first challenge area. And I'll give you a second to get into Mentimeter, so just hang out. Oh, it's not showing up? Is it working now? Yes. Okay. Great. Okay, hopefully you're all in there now, so we can go ahead and, yeah, so you see that we have our first challenge area, which is building trust and sustaining long-term relationships. So we want to give you about a minute to go through these topics and pick your top, maybe you can rank them if we had time, but ideally just pick your top two. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to look here. It looks like it's moving around a lot, so I'm going to wait a second. Okay. So the top one isn't moving, so I'm going to just trust that we can move forward with this one. So the top one that we're seeing here is building shared leadership and decision making. So on that topic, I'm going to target a couple folks. Let's see. Maybe we'll start with you, Cora. Yeah, so we will start with you. And the question is, shared decision-making is often cited as essential, but harder to practice. What are some practical ways that you've structured shared leadership so it doesn't just mean consultation, but real power sharing?
Yeah. Is this on? Okay.
It is, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, that's such a great question. We were discussing it earlier at my table, too. I think being brought in, so like from the CBO perspective, being brought in early during the planning process of a project is super, super important so that it doesn't turn into like a consultation role as opposed to like a shared partnership where we're equals in the conversation and we can share what our priorities are. And then we could also learn about what the priorities are within the funding too. So we can navigate that relationship together. So I think that's a huge one. Also, giving us more authority over the community engagement plans as well, and just playing to our strengths, I would say is like the top 3 things that come to mind when thinking about a shared relationship. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think, Brandon, maybe you can speak to this as well.
Yes, is this on? All right. Yeah, this is something that I think I'm still grappling with in a lot of ways. So for the PCJ and the Bay initiative, we have an advisory board that includes community partners so they can provide input and guidance on sort of shaping the initiative and how it's designed. However, we've noticed that only about 25% of our advisory board members are from community partners. The other 75% are Stanford affiliates. So there's a very disproportionate representation. Also, it really is more of like a consultative type of advisory board. And the sort of staff at the Haas Center where I work, we're the ones who are really defining what are going to be the agendas for like when we have advisory board meetings and facilitating those. And so this year we're really trying to change our approach through a couple different ways. One is just trying to get a more equal representation of community partners and Stanford affiliates on our advisory board, getting closer to like 50-50 representation. Another thing that we are going to be trying to implement this year is inviting our community partners, if they want to be involved in like co-defining what are the agendas that we're going to focus on at these meetings, if they're interested in co-facilitating these meetings with us as well. So there's just a couple things that we're working on, but still a challenge that we're really grappling with in a lot of ways.
Great, thank you. And so it looks like that kind of gets us to the next topic that came up as under this challenge. So it looks like the second one that came up was creating clear value and benefits for community participation. So it seems like a perfect segue from what you both just shared. In your work, maybe we can start potentially with whoever would like to respond. I'll just let me know. But I do think that there are ways that you can see the clear value and the actual benefits in the community. So are there some examples that you would be able to share? Is there anyone that would like to share? If not, I might just go back to the folks who already spoke on that.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So I think it's really important to respect the community values. And where we come in, I think, researchers, partners, and cities and everything, we need to respect the values of the community and how they address those values. I don't think we need to go and impose the values that we have as an organization. I think, the partnerships that we have with Stanford and with you and with UC Davis, they come very humble to our communities and adapt to our community values. I think I have some people here that I was working in East Palo Alto before, and East Palo Alto had a story probably 20, 30 years ago, and people at the table from East Palo Alto won't let me lie, that, Stanford used to go there to do only research. Am I right? Yeah. So, the research, and then they were leaving. But in the last, probably 5 years, 10 years since we working with them, we decided to say, you know what? No. What we want is an equal partnership, but with our community values. I think that's one of the important parts that, research partners and universities, we partner with Stanford, we partner with other universities, UC Davis, name it. San Francisco State is going to be partnering with us, but they need to come here humbly and adapt to the community values what they have.
That's great. Thank you. And I think that gets at the values being something that's respected, but also as far as community benefits, I see that as the power that the community now has in their hands to advocate for keeping their culture and values core to the partnerships. Because maybe before, when Stanford came, they didn't feel that empowerment to push back and have those boundaries. And now it sounds like over time they're feeling more and more able to communicate that clearly. So I could see that as a value. Anyone else want to speak to that? I think we have another minute or two on the values and benefits that you can see from these partnerships.
Yeah, I'll just add benefits for community, definitely stipending community members for all of their work, especially when we're asking them to show up after hours, after their work shift, making sure that there's childcare, there's appropriate in-language capabilities and accessibility to the materials beforehand, during the meeting, printed out too, and not only virtual, to try to get, cut out some barriers for folks. But yeah, going back to that stipended piece, it's super huge, I think, because they're working, we're working towards this climate future. So yeah. that's what I'll add.
That's great.
If I can
Yeah.
quickly add, it also links to the previous question about how we kind of share the power in the relationship. So when we bring the kind of technology that we have capacity to build and to share as a university, we want to do that in service of the community members who need it most or want it most, and who it's relevant for. So we're not going to just kind of like drop into a community without any context. And so we work really closely with our community partners, including Rise South City, to make sure that the place that we're going to be putting our air quality monitoring technology is going to be collecting the kind of data that our participants want to see and want to be able to use to advocate for the issues that they've been seeing in their community. So that value add is really the most important part of the work that we are doing as community-based participatory researchers.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I think we can go back to your Mentimeter. Hopefully you still have that on your screen. And we'll head on to the next challenge. So this challenge is on resources and capacity. So again, just there's a little less, but I think if you can rank your top 2 first, we'll probably only have time to get to those. Okay, great. So it looks like we have a winner so far. Oh, it had just switched back. So on this one, it looks like strengthening community capacity to engage in research, something you were just talking about, Micaela, is looking like the winner, and then it switched again. But we're just going to stick to that. So CBOs are often asked to engage in research while balancing advocacy, services, and fundraising. How can academic partners better support community capacity instead of adding another burden? And it looks like, let's see, Brandon, looked like you put your name next to this one, so
Yes, I did.
that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, well, at the Haas Center, you know, and all the work that we do, we really aim for reciprocal partnerships, and, you know, with all of the community organizations that we work with. And I think part of what we do is trying to scope projects ahead of time such that the benefits outweigh the costs. And there's a few ways that we've tried to do that. One is that we try to have students working with these community partner organizations, and we're providing students at no cost. I kind of put that in quotes because even though it's no financial cost to the organizations, there's obviously time and effort required to supervise and support those students, but essentially free financially to the organizations. So there's no cost burden. And a lot of times the students are really able to create these deliverables such as like, you know, helping the organizations advance their fundraising efforts, helping them with advocacy or with more service provision. So essentially, the goal is that we're actually enhancing the organizational capacity for our partners instead of really causing a burden. And something that kind of goes along with that as well is preparation. We really try to spend time preparing the students before they start their engagements with the community partners so that it's less burden on the partners to have to train them and get them up to speed, for example.
Thank you. And then, Micaela, do you want to respond to this one?
Yeah, can you quickly rephrase?
Yeah. Let's see where. So it's how can academic partners better support community capacity instead of adding another burden?
Right. So we know that our community partners do a ton, whether it's just creating the community space to even raise these issues that we are trying to deal with, going to agencies, advocating, so many aspects. So again, kind of speaking to that value add that we want to have as researchers, we make sure to know what our lane is essentially and not to overcommit, overpromise and say that we will be able to by any means solve or supplant any of the things that they already are doing, but to really serve as partners to be able to bolster some of that work and try to figure out where our research will fit in best. And so I think that the way that that has kind of come up has been just the constant back and forth communication about when we get the data collection, how we're presenting that to community members, how it's in the most accessible formats, and what's going to be the most useful for them to be able to use in their communities.
Great, and then I'd love to hear from one of the community representatives.
Yeah. So, okay, I think it's great, and long-term relationships really work. But often now we have students that can help us for 6 weeks, and they get really shorted because, you know, in the 6 weeks they need to continue doing education, homework, or whatever they're doing. So sometimes it becomes a really burden to be meeting with us. I mean, it's really hard to start a project from zero and ended up in, yeah, you know, this is not what I was looking. And we really appreciate long-term partnerships. So the fellows that are in the summer, they're the whole summer, they're the year-round students. But sometimes we have classes, a classroom that approach us as an organization and say, we want to do a research into something. That's good, but that's not what we're really looking at. Then we have a long relationship with Michael and Alex, and this has been here for a year, and then before you it was Chin Chin. So it was somebody else. So this is building in a 3-year relationship that we're working with this monitor right here. We have a capstone students that, let me explain you, that we start hitting with the first capstone student who helped us create some maps from Stanford. And then, you know, he works for the whole year trying to set up the network and helping us. Then we had the second student that created a map, and she started working in a map and everything. Then we have the third year, we have another student that helped us improve those maps, put some stuff in the web. And now we're going into our 4th year with another capstone student that is helping us improve that, create a web app and everything. So this is the kind of relationship that we need. Not a 2-week, not a 6-week relationship, but long-term relationships. And even if we have the classes, that offer us, because we have a class that help us develop some data, one of the data classes up there. I say, okay, I love you guys, but at the end of your stuff, the thing that we want to is a paper for the next students to say, what else is missing here? Mm-hmm. Where are we going from here? What do you miss doing that when we need to test? So, you know, it will be continuation at the next round, if it's a next round. So I think it's going to be a next round. I hope so there's going to be a next round, because they were great creating all this stuff. But, you know, what is the use that we're going to have if we only have them for 6 weeks? Right. I think long-term relationships and long-term relationships with professors that we will continue one project. No, okay, we're going to do like 20 projects, and all of them are going to be like archived somewhere. I'm being honest, because that's what their goal, you know, and we're not going to be using that in the community. So I rather, you know, do these things. So I'm really grateful for the capstone students, and you know, the great thing about it that they recruit each other. And they just go to the health center and say, oh, this is the next generation of students that we're going to have there. And we have a year capstone student doing this, and they keep recruiting each other, and they keep saying, okay, this is what we need. And it's a handoff that we did in the summer, that we have a couple of meetings with them. So this student who is going to start really soon, she knows what she's going to be doing. So we don't have to use internal resources. Well, we meet with them, and we meet with the advisor, but that's all that we do. So you see this little map that was here is developing in something big through 4 years and upcoming. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of relationship that we want. Long-term. It will benefit the student, it will benefit us,
Thank you. And I want to, yeah, go ahead. I want to highlight a best practice I've seen from Dr. Sunny Ivy at UC Berkeley, where she brings her students, but she's always, almost every time she's with the student, and she wants to make sure that she's keeping that thread going because she recognizes that the students are switching so quickly. She's like, if there's not a student ready to jump in right when the last one left, she's in there on top of her schedule and just making sure that all of the data, like all the technical aspects of the work are continuing to move forward, regardless of if they have a student ready to take care of it. So that's like the extra step that I've seen faculty take before, and that's quite impressive. So great. So we'll move on because we need to get to our next challenge, I believe. So let's go ahead and move on to challenge number 3, which is on cultural awareness. Back into your Mentimeter and talking about how we can build more culturally aware and respectful partnerships. Okay. There's 2 tying that are just flipping back and forth, so I'm just going to pick one. So valuing and uplifting the lived experience of community members is winning right now. So the question that I have, and I'm going to just send it over to you, Caro, because we haven't heard from you in a second. So lived experience is often undervalued compared to expert knowledge. What are some ways that you've ensured community knowledge is elevated as equally legitimate to academic research?
Yeah, I love this question. First of all, lived experience is totally expert knowledge, just to start off. Yes. Expert knowledge, because it's the folks that live it and experience it that tell the story. And so part of my job at Brightline, working with leaders in the community, mostly Latinx women in the community with children with asthma, is telling their story. Because I think storytelling is like a huge part of it, especially when we think about advocacy work, like going and giving public comment. We need the support of like academia to help us tell the story and like statistics and the hard numbers, but also like the heart side of it and like the personal experience of a person who has received a free air purifier because of the collaboration and the work that we've put in and how that has changed and helped their lives. And so that's super impactful stories that we can tell through podcasts, through uplifting a community member whenever we can, bringing them to things like this and like empowering them in that way with data, with stipends, with knowledge too. So yeah, that's all to say lived experience is so important, and I think it's definitely part of the puzzle piece to get and push for more advocacy work, long-term policy work in this space. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can add to that the quantitative side of things obviously has its merits and it has its needs and how we are data driven and how we have all this important science happening. But the qualitative side of things is indispensable. And it's a lot of the reason that, again, drives where we locate a monitor, how we get the work done. And when we're reporting back on the quantitative side of things, we make sure to include that reasoning and to make sure that it doesn't just come in an abstract sense, right? Because environmental justice isn't just about the things that we can accomplish for the air. It is about the people who are having the lived experiences and why it's useful for them that we are even collecting this kind of data.
Thank you.
Time to add or no?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like we do.
Yeah, I think a lot of students at Stanford who want to engage in this kind of work, they have very good intentions. And a lot of time they're very highly educated, but I think that can also give them a sense that they, have this sort of expert knowledge, this expertise, and that they're the ones that are going to maybe save the community with their expert knowledge. And so at the Haas Center, we have these principles of ethical and effective service. They're basically ensuring that our work aligns with our values. They've been developed over the last more than 20 years in partnership with community partners, other stakeholders. And one of our principles is humility. I think that's one of the top principles that we have. And it's really about, adopting sort of a learner mindset, being curious, listening generously, and keeping an open mind, and really trying to see communities through an asset-based framework instead of a deficit-based framework. And so that's something that we really try to prepare all the students that we work with before they're engaging with their community partners.
That's great. Thank you. Great. Are we good on time for that one? 1 minute? Okay. I think, yeah, so just on the topic, I know that the next item is also about power dynamics, which I know we already touched on under one of the other challenges, but in the context of cultural awareness, there is a question about ensuring that these partnerships are helping to shift dynamics toward more mutual respect and shared ownership. So in the context of cultural awareness, is there anything coming up for you all as far as a response? Ideas you have?
I'll say in language, so having access to materials in folks' language is a huge one in the work that I do. And it's difficult, especially when I'm trying to get community leaders to go, for instance, give public comment. We have to request somebody to be on site at the government agency that has that language. So there's a ton of steps beforehand that I have to coordinate in order for those things to exist. And the other really important one is understanding the history of the community. I think that one is huge, especially when we talk about distrust or folks not trusting government, for instance, or not trusting academia. Well, maybe we need to understand why in order to proceed and try to, in the future, try that relationship again, not close that door off, but learn from it. And what can we do better so that we can continue to work with academia, can continue to work with government, because we're all part of the solution, right? But it's really important to know that nuance so that you can, make it safe for everyone.
I love that. My vision, my visualization while you were talking is that the students do continually kind of check in and do a little pulse, survey assessment, in person, of course, where they're kind of just checking in and making sure that they're doing everything in alignment with the cultures and the values and the, priorities of the organizations that they're working with. And just kind of getting that feedback on how do we adjust and continue to make it better. I love that. So, okay, I think we need to move on to our next challenge. The fourth and final challenge we have is on communication gaps. So the question is, how can we improve communication between academic and community partners? I'll give you a moment to rank. Looks like we have a clear winner this time, and that is the question of involving community members in shaping research questions. So too often research questions are defined before community voices are even at the table. What processes have you used to ensure that communities shape the questions from the start? And I guess we could start with Micaela, if that's okay, and then hear from anyone that wants to chime in.
I feel like I sound kind of like a broken record in that we really do rely on our community partners to know what the needs of the community is. So the processes that kind of start that off is the info sharing, right, from the baseline of what are the capacities that we have as academics and as researchers with the technology that we have. So making those things clear and then sharing that with the community and then having them in turn let us know where are the areas of concern that they would want us to actually be in. And so we don't always have the chance to explore every avenue, right? But that's where we can incorporate it into the future research. So kind of like what Julio was talking about with the continuing capstone, right? It may be that we can only come up with one report that collects all of the data from this run of our air monitor. But we can include in the next steps that there are these continuing issues that community members have, that a noise complaint is something that, while no, it isn't directly linked to the air toxic metals that are in the air, it is something that is part of the ecosystem of what impacts this environmental justice community. And so we make sure to have this back and forth in an open dialogue that has the capacity to include a lot of that continued understanding and need for research.
Thank you. And I'd love to hear from one of the community-based leaders here on that topic, like your side of what Micaela just shared.
Sure. So I think that, it's really valid what you say, Micaela, but often enough that, you say, okay, community of South San Francisco, we want to inform you about air quality, and when I'm doing research on air quality, and when I bring you all this stuff in air quality. But I say, I don't care about air quality. I care about cleaner streets. So, no, but, we do. With cleaner streets, you need to get some air quality. I don't care about air quality. I care that my streets are clean, that, I get in the morning. So understanding where is what the community wants and what you have to offer, I think that's really important. When we started air quality research, we talked to community members, we educate them, because air is not something that you can see, but you can feel it. Asthma at your homes, respiratory issues with adults, and all that. That's part of South San Francisco. So we talk to the community and say, this is what's going on. These are the numbers. So let's start talking about air quality. How can we start? Just put some monitors out there. Yes, and what are we doing with the monitors? So we start talking to the communities. And then they say, yes, we do care about air quality, because we know about air quality. We know what asthma and all of all the stuff that is happening in our community. But, if you come and say, okay, we're going to do a research in air quality, and say, I don't care really about air quality. So that is all about, education, really engaging the community. We've been working this for the last 3 or 4 years with community members. And right now, the community is going about their quality. It took us 3 years. It took us a lot of time, engaging the community. So we're not going to be expecting something that's going to happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. And often enough, the funders, they want results, really, really quick. Researchers want result really, really quick. This is a long-term project. We know with the monitors that we have and with the partnership that we have, this is a long-term. This is not going to be like a year, 2 years. This is 5, 6, 7 years, at least. So we have some results. But we want something quick. It's going to benefit the community? I don't think so. Where this is going? Archive in my library. Or archive at Stanford's archive. Probably Stanford has a big archive center someplace, somewhere that we know about it, that all this research and all this data is going. And it's not being used in the community because you don't give us the time. I'm talking at UC Davis too. They don't give us the time to engage the community in what they want. So this is all about, just, it takes time.
Indeed. Thank you. Yeah, time is always one of the biggest barriers. no matter what you're talking about. But I think we have like 1 minute. So I did want to hear if there was a response, an exciting, creative, innovative, and impactful way that you have been able to share data in a way that actually resonates with the community and help them kind of own that data. You have 1 minute.
I'll say visualizations have been really, really important. Visualizations, translating really technical information into stories that they can relate to, that community members can relate to, like a morning commute, as opposed to like PM 2.5, you know, they don't care. But if you say during the morning commute when you're out and exposed, this is what you're breathing in, then that kind of like, you know, their curiosity kind of lights up. So like making it relatable, visualizations, and of course, accessible language.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would just second that. A lot of our projects have involved students creating like GIS story maps for community partners. And then as Julio mentioned, you know, with some of the air quality projects, you know, after one student had installed a lot of air quality monitors, and then another student created this dashboard that was really visualizing like what is the air quality and looking like hyper local air quality in different neighborhoods, and then how are those overlaid with health issues, so you could really see like, okay, is it safe to go outside in my area right now, and also allows community members to use this data to advocate city officials like, oh, we need changes in infrastructure or policy to address these health disparities that we're seeing.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, so that wraps up the 4 challenges portion and the Mentimeter portion of our panel today. And now we want to invite you. I saw some great questions coming in through Mentimeter, but I would prefer to hear some voices in the room to kind of activate y'all's part of the room. So we have a microphone that we'll send out to you and just ask you to raise your hand, and we have some time for some questions. Anyone? There's one back there. So we have one over here, and then one at table 4 has one as well.
Yeah, I just have a question about...
Do you want to, sorry, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi,
Thank you.
I'm Natalie Rodriguez. I'm a promotora with Nuestra Casa with the Environmental Justice Team. And I just have a question about, I know you were talking a little bit about continuing research and kind of continuing that partnership with CBOs. How do you tackle kind of emerging community issues or emerging community needs, changing community needs, and involving researchers and doing continuous work with those changing community needs? So like with air quality, that's something that a lot of San Mateo County residents are worried about, but how do you continue that research in a way that might address differing community needs as they rise?
Great question. Thank you. Would you like to respond, Brandon?
I mean, yeah, great. Thank you for that question. I think something that we always try to prioritize in the work that we do is basically having community identified and community driven priorities really shape our work. So we don't go in with like a specific agenda, like, hey, we want to do this type of project necessarily. It's always like, what is important to the community? What do they want to get answered? What do they want to work on? And then it's like, okay, how can we best support them in doing that? So that's kind of the mindset that we try to take in a lot of the projects that we do.
So like connecting the dots to maybe if a concern or a desire from the community is not within your purview, you can find a way to help them network with.
Connect to other people on Stanford. Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Thank you. Any other responses before we take our next question? Okay, great, thanks. And yeah, table 4, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kia Walton. Pronouns are he and she. I'm representing Pogo Park. It's a park in Richmond, California. I love Pogo. Oh my God, thank you. Yay. Everyone should love Pogo. So we are building a community resilience center. Long and short is we're going to prepare about 15,000 residents for emergency response preparedness, recovery and disaster, as well as Blue Sky Days programming. So the first time our neighbors meet each other isn't when they need to turn off a gas line. I'm going to speak more slowly. That being said, we have a grant from the state of California, Strategic Growth Council, for $10 million, and that's wonderful. And the grant itself is somewhat constricting. And so I wanted to know if you all had any strategy or savvy around what to do to make community engagement more meaningful. Like, I don't need a community member to tell me what color the wall should be. I want something a little bit more meaty that's going to impact what they actually need. And it's really just a question of what might you do when the deliverables feel a little bit more constrained than the imagination and hopes of the community.
Great question.
I'll try to tackle this one. I think a good structure that I've been a part of for a few projects has been community advisory boards at the beginning with CABs, which is smaller, and you can diversify it to be like half community members, half like CBOs in the region. So there's a good pool, and try to have them kind of create guidelines and feedback to the plans that are currently happening or what the project goals are. And then once that is kind of set in place, then bring in more community members to give more feedback, provide stipends in that way. It can be connected through those CBOs too, because you can tap into their networks or any folks. That's a successful framework that we've worked with, but yeah, open it to the rest of the panel if you have any ideas.
Sounds like something that makes me think, just that creative, which Pogo Park is, I feel like, a leader in the Bay and in the state of getting creative outside of the, just designing a park. It's just in case y'all haven't heard of it. From what I recall, it's very much like from the beginning, making sure that the people even designing the park, creating the park, security on site is all like within a certain radius of the park, people from that community. So bringing the economics back, which is wonderful and beautiful. So y'all sound like a group that would just automatically, because you have that 10 million pot and then you're hearing all these various concerns. So it sounds like you would already do this, but just getting as creative as possible, maybe pushing a little on the contract language might say something, but when you get that relationship with SGC and you have your officer there, they can help you navigate ways that you can get creative maybe and push the funding opportunity beyond where it was originally, created to go, just to kind of reflect and actually address more community concerns. And then another thing is, at the end of the grant cycle, always kind of documenting and finding ways to implement and be accountable to what you heard so that, it's on paper and everyone in the room already heard that that's what the community needs next. So it's all, for me, it's like creativity and advocacy and relationships. Like that's, if you want to narrow it in, it's all, like Julio said, it's going to be a long process and take a long time, but that's my initial response, which y'all are already really good at from what I know of your work. Yes.
Hi there, my name's Ayana. I'm a recent Stanford grad and I currently work on a street medicine team in South Central LA, but I'm here representing Stanford Housing Equity Project, which is a collection of collaborations between medical students, graduate students, and lots of CBOs. And I have a question for the CBO rep specifically, kind of more of a basic practice question. For that initial contact, what are the best practices for a warm initial contact? Given Stanford's extractive research history, how can we start off on the right foot from the very first moment that we're reaching out to partners? Because that's something that's coming up a lot for us.
For us, going to the Haas Center and asking, we do have a great relationship with the Haas Center. I think we communicate all the time with them. So, for us, it's like really just get in touch with the Haas Center. And Brandon is always emailing me and saying, Julio, is this project that is there and so on. And I say, okay, let's talk about it. So we meet about that. And if we decide to move forward, I move forward with that. But, Jess, you have a great tool and a great entry point to a lot of CBOs from East Palo Alto to South San Francisco to the Haas Center.
Thanks for the plug. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that. Showing up in person, showing up often, and showing up to events that maybe aren't completely correlated to the project or program that you're working on, like a Mother's Day event that, you know, Brightline or Rice House City is putting on, and going and showing up and saying that you're committed and that you care about the people who are doing the work, not just the work itself, right? So that's a good way to build trust too, and a warm welcome.
Yeah, I can just second that, build on that a little bit, and say, often we will advise students to, you know, see if the community partners they're interested in working with are hosting events that are open to the public, and so they can go and, you know, spend time, and it's kind of showing their commitment. Maybe they're meeting folks from the organization and starting to build that relationship, and oftentimes encouraging them not to necessarily lead with the project that you want to work on, but just think about trying to build a relationship first and then come with like an ask later after you've already started laying some of the relationship building piece.
Yeah, I'll plus one to that the community partners that we work with have all been through the pre-existing relationships that we've created and continue to foster. So I think that is definitely very essential.
And volunteer with us.
Yes.
Just to plug in, we have a planting event in South San Francisco. We're going to be planting some trees in November. So, Margot, raise your hand. Margot. Okay, so if you're interested in volunteering with us,
Come talk to me.
planting trees, please do. So, you know, I think that's a great entry point for us, volunteering.
Indeed. Okay.
Hi,
we have
everyone.
about 1 minute, but
Okay,
yes.
I'm going to take up that 1 minute.
Great.
My name is Tiffany Uhila Hautau, Executive Director of Anamatangi in East Palo Alto. I just wanted to underscore all what has been said, but also bring forth that and spotlight CRC because our community is forming a bi-county EJ network, and we just talked about this last night on building partnerships, expanding it, building long-term relationships with research, academia institutions. And we're gonna go for, of course, Stanford, who is in our backyard, who owes us back pay from like 1900s. And so because of the fact that they just planted, you know, there's a lot of mistrust. And so to rebuild that, all of what has been said, all the challenges, our EJ network is facing that head on. And so if there could be some sort of working document or a template that can be shared, because what Julio and our sister is doing already with these institutions are already going to be evolving as we speak. And so a lot of these people in this room are going to need that playbook. So if we can share it so that we're not just reinventing it, but we're also putting our own cultural nuance, knowledge and customized designs to it. But what you guys have already started is already what everyone is possibly already looking for those solutions. Thank you.
That's a great idea. I love that. Thank you. Someone start a website or something, a place where we can all keep track of all of this amazing work. And I think that we're at time. Thanks to Margot for letting me know. So I want to thank the panelists yet again for joining us and for this really engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops.